Alrighty, welcome to part 3 of our mini series of videos on the various selection tools that you have access to in Photoshop. In this video, we're going to be covering the Quick Mask tool, and I find that this tool is really helpful and easy to use, especially if you happen to have a stylus. So if you have access to Photoshop on a tablet, or if you have a Cintiq ideally, or even any sort of Wacom tablet, that's ideal. But you don't necessarily need to have that. You can also use the Quick Mask tool even with a keyboard and a mouse. It's just easier to use with a stylus. So in our last videos, we covered the color range selection tool and the layer selection tool. In this video, using the Quick Mask tool, what I'm going to do, and a combination of all the tools that we've used so far, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select out this body here, this teal, um, you know, case for the motor of the blender here. And I'm going to say, like, all right, let's say that instead of having this being like a light teal color, maybe I want this to be a white, or maybe I want it to be, a medium gray or something, just any different color, really. It doesn't matter. Because what I don't want to do is I don't want to change the color of the text and the iconography that's happening on this case. And it's a little bit too delicate for my magic wand tool, for example. I'm not going to be able to fully select that out and whatnot. So I want to make sure that I can isolate those numbers and manipulate them separately from the casing here, so that I can make sure that they stay legible even as I manipulate that. So how am I going to do this? Well, first, I want to go through a quick explanation of what the Quick Mask tool is, and I'm going to use it like in action basically. So the Quick Mask tool, the shortcut for it is Q on your keyboard. And where it sits on your toolbar is, rather than up here with all the rest of your tools, it actually sits down here underneath your color swatches. And when it's on, it'll be a solid rectangle with a hollow dot in the middle. And when it is off, it'll be a hollow rectangle with a dotted circle in the middle. Okay. You will also know that it's on because the layer that you currently have selected, it'll be highlighted by default red. You can change that color if you want to, but it'll be highlighted red over here in your layers panel. And basically what's happening when we're using the Quick Mask tool is that I can use my brushes or my eraser tool like this, and I can get very precise. I basically like color in where I want to be selected, and when I'm all done, when I've got it the way that I want it to be, I can hit Q again to exit out of Quick Mask, and you can see that it makes a selection based on where I had that paint effect. And if I toggle Q, I can see it go up back and forth, and I can continue to adjust it. But now that I have like my my paintbrush tool picked pretty much, like you can see that when the paintbrush tool is used regularly, it just colors in with whatever my foreground color is. And when I switch over to Quick Mask, then it's different. Um, so we're just gonna go ahead and undo all of that. Okay. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to select the body of this blender and then isolate out the text here. Or actually, first what I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate out the text here, and then I'm going to modify the body of the blender underneath it. So what I'm going to do is I will go into Quick Mask mode. I'm going to get nice and personal here. I'm going to go into Quick Mask mode, and now I want my brush, because right now it's way too big to be adjusting all and like coloring in all these little letters here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my brush menu real quick with B, and just make sure that I'm at like a really tiny pixel size, or I'm sorry, really tiny brush size, like a 1 or 2 pixels. So I'm going to be able to color this in accurately. And then I'm going to zoom in here, and I am just going to go over this, and essentially I'm tracing where all of these little letters and icons are. Okay. Okay, so once I've got this looking more or less the way that I want it to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out and I'm going to hit Q. And I can see that I've got Q, Q, yep. That pretty much looks right. If I'm not sure because of the way that the marching ants look, sometimes it gets cut off. I just hit Q again, and I can just double check like where all that red is. Okay, so this looks pretty good. And basically, so sometimes what will happen is you will accidentally mask off everything except for the area that you want instead of just the area that you want. You can tell that this has happened here because I have marching ants along the border of my uh, of my canvas as well. So the way that you fix that is really easy. Um, you'll pick any of your selection tools. It doesn't matter if it's the marquee tool. It doesn't matter if it's a lasso tool. It doesn't matter if it's the magic wand tool. Any of them will do. And you'll just right click anywhere on the canvas. You'll get this little drop down menu. You'll just go to select inverse. Click on that. And that's just going to swap your selection here. If I hit quick mask, I can see it's now colored everything red in except for the area that I've got. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to copy this and paste it onto a new layer. And then what I can do is I can adjust this, make it a little darker or whatever, whatever I want. Maybe I want to, reduce the saturation just in case I got any of this teal in here. Oh, okay. I'll just make sure to call this like body graphic or something to mark that it's there. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use all the other tools that I've learned from to select out this body without selecting any of the chrome or anything like that. And then I can adjust the color without being worried about without being worried about losing legibility here from these numbers that are on here. So first I'm going to go back down to my blender layer. I'm going to select pixels by right clicking on the thumbnail and going to select pixels. Great. Now I'm going to go to my lasso tool. I'm going to make sure that I'm on my remove from selection, and I will just go in here and remove everything that's on this blender that is not what I like part of this teal. Okay, so now I've got the body of my blender selected out without selecting any of the chrome that's located on this like KitchenAid band or the dials or anything like that. And I already know that I have isolated my my iconography here, like the graphics here, which means that I can manipulate this body now. Um, and I can, modify the colors and whatever, pretty much however I want. And if I hit colorize, it'll kind of unify those colors there. So if I want this to be, say, like a really vibrant red, I can move my slider over here to like this red and then like bump up the saturation, maybe lower the lightness a little bit or something. Like it doesn't matter. Um, and just keep like tweaking with it. Um, and I can see that it kind of adjusts everything all together. So like it's adjusting the highlights and lowlights as well, um, without modifying like the icons in here, like the graphics that I isolated out. So if I hit OK and I deselect, like I can still read these numbers. And if I turn this off, it gets a lot more difficult, and I can see that I've colored these numbers in like all together. And yeah, you can do that with the help of the quick mask to just allow you to get like a degree of precision that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise with the other tools, or even if you could, it would just be really time consuming. Okay, so that concludes our little presentation on some of the selection methods. There are methods of selection that we didn't cover in these videos. Photoshop is a really complicated program. But if there is something that you would like to see covered that I haven't covered, or perhaps like seeing a different way to make use of some of these other tools, or if you have a question about how to achieve something in Photoshop, reach out, let me know, and I would be happy to make a video for it. Thanks for coming, y'all.